this is the environment where you could be your authentic self. This is coach to coach. So we're going to hear one coach's story, and you're going to be able to take these things and be able to use them in your career so you can actually level up. We asked that everybody mute their phone for the first portion of the call. Today is very, very exciting. It's such an exciting segment that we have today with Coach Bitis. I've been knowing Coach Bitis for 4 years now. We teach together. She's been helping me as a coach. I've been helping her as a coach. We've been bouncing ideas off of one another. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I really, really love about Coach Bitis is the way that she builds those player relationships and that team culture. So if you're looking to build player relationships, if team culture is a big thing on your list, we always talk about team culture and how it could change the dynamics of your team and your season. This is going to be a critical segment that we're going through today, because I'm just gonna be real. She's sort of like the guru when it comes to team bonding activities. I'm gonna just throw that out there. I'm not no pressure, Coach Bitis. I'm just saying she's something like the guru. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it off. Let her tell her story. Coach, could you just tell everybody how'd you even get into coaching?
Yeah. Thank you, first of all, for the intro. You always make my humble side shake a little, because I'm always like, yo, this guy's going off right now. But I actually got into coaching. I was always a fan of basketball. I played a little bit in college, but I got an opportunity to coach high school basketball when I was initially exes from a school that I was teaching at in the PSAO. And then I kind of landed this job, and they were like, hey, we are just starting a new program, would you like to take it over? And I was like, yeah, totally. Never really had coached before. Not basketball. I had coached swimming, actually, was what I was really coaching before. And then, so I took over the team at Maspeth High School. It was a boys varsity team, and we kind of started to build the program from there. My first year, we were not eligible to play in the PSAO, but right off the bat, I realized that the team was special, so we had no seniors because it was a new school. So we had just mostly juniors, sophomores, and I think one freshman player. So I knew we were going to bring the whole team back. So we had about 10 games to play. So we figured, hey, there's only 10 games happening. We need to get some more games. These guys know what they're doing. So we just started playing all types of levels of teams. But it was to the point where teams honestly didn't want to play us because we were a developmental team. So, it was the status, people didn't want to play a developmental team. But whatever game we could get, we did. And, it just kind of went from there. And then the next year, we brought back the entire team. We didn't lose a game that year, my first year coaching there. And then the second year, again, we ended up going undefeated and all the way to the city championship. We won the city championship. And then we went up to states. We came back from a 16-point deficit at half to win in the first round, and then we advanced to the finals. But we lost there in the finals, but it was a hell of a ride. And then continued to coach there for another, I believe, was it 3 years or 2 years? Just about, I think 2017. It was my last season there. And we had a very successful program. We were, every year we're top 8 in the city. And then I got the opportunity that year. I was always kind of thinking about what the next level would look like, what it would feel like. I was always curious. So I had an opportunity came up at your college. There was a rebuild happening. There was a new AD. They were looking for, to somebody to take the team in a different direction. And my biggest thing was always everything that's happening happens from culture. And when I went into my interview, honestly, that was the main thing I was talking about. And they were like, you need to be here. So I didn't even think I was going to get the job. I really went in kind of thinking this is going to be my way of learning what to expect in these interviews. I did not have my mindset on taking this job. But I really just wanted to kind of know what the conversations are, what the expectations are at the next level, and learn. So if one day the opportunity does arise, I would be ready. Mm-hmm. But, honestly, I fell in love with my AD at the time, and it seems like she fell in love with me too, because initially she offered me the job, but I couldn't take it because I was actually leaving. she offered me the job in June, and I already had this whole trip planned to go out of the country, and I was going to be traveling for like 2 months. And she was like, I need somebody right now. Like, we have to build a team, like, you know. And I was like, I understand, like, you got to do what you got to do. So I ended up not, you know, it ended up not working out. And then she called me while I was in Thailand and it was like August, and she's like, hey, I need you here. Like, you're the person I want. Everybody else that I'm communicating with is not right. Like, you need to be here. So I was literally at the airport.
Wait. You're going to have to go back, because that might have went over somebody's head. And I want you to really just kind of give us a little bit of the inside behind that. So you were offered the job. You didn't accept the job right away. You went on a trip for 2 months.
So I accepted the job. It's not that I didn't accept the job. I told her, like, I would love to take the job, but I'm letting you know, like, full disclosure, I have a trip planned for, you know, 2 months, pretty much. And she was like, ouch, you know, like, she kind of like took it as a hit. And she was like, I don't know if we could really do this right now because of what we need. Like, we need to recruit. We need to set up this program. We need to really build everything up, right? And, like, I mean, like, it was going to be a brand new, you know, like, honestly, like, if you're recruiting, you're not recruiting in August, you know what I mean? So it was already like late in the game. So yeah, and then she called me up. You know, I got a voicemail. I was at the airport, no joke. I was at the airport in Thailand, and I'm there with my wife, and I'm like, Danae just called me. And she was like, what? I was like, she just called. She just said that she wants me to take this job. And I literally sat there, and it's so crazy, right, how things kind of happen, because at that point I had already like fixed my mindset. I'm going back to Maspeth. I got my guys, like, this is what we're doing. Like, I already had systems going and like doing things, you know, like, and then like she just like, you know, threw me off with that. But you know, Andrea and I had literally a discussion right then and there, and she was like, you need to take this job. And I was like, all right, I'll take the job.
Yeah, love that.
So that's where I'm at. And I just finished my 3rd season at York. We took a team that had only won 2 games in the season previously. We won, I believe, 8 games or 9 games my first season. The second season that I was there we had a brand new team. We had 10 freshmen pretty much. We kind of had to take a little bit of a step back, so we didn't win as much, but I felt better about the program and where we were going. And then this year was our more successful season. We finished with 10 wins. 11 wins, sorry. So, you know, that was a year like that we really were looking forward to, because it was our first recruiting class, really, like, now growing up. And so I'm really excited, and I really want to play ball this year, because I think this is going to be our best year yet. And we're kind of in limbo right now. We don't really know what's happening. So, you know, that first recruiting class, they're all juniors right now, and like, that's our foundation. Like, those girls are our foundation. We have a few good girls that we brought in from last year that we're excited to keep building on. And then this recruiting class right now, this was skill-based, our best recruiting class. So
Love that. Man, thanks for sharing your story with us.
Really?
So, you know, I get the pleasure to work with you every day. Coach Bitis is actually one of our personal clients as well. So we do a lot of one-on-one work together. And one thing that really jumps out to me, and she's very modest, okay? I'm gonna just be transparent. She's very modest. She doesn't really talk about all the different things that she's in charge of or that she does, right? This is a straight up leader that we're talking about on this phone. So Coach Bitis built a boys program and then switched over to a women's basketball program to become the head coach there. So could you kind of go into detail about what are some of the things that you go in and you want to accomplish in that first 30 days? Like, when you built that boys program, and now you're also in the process of building your women's program, what are some of the things that you do right away to turn around that team culture?
Yeah, I think the first thing that you really have to do is set expectations, standards. I don't even like to call them expectations. I really rather call them standard, right? Like, what's your standards of excellence? And I think that if your standards of excellence are not met consistently, I think that that's where you're going to have a problem. And they're not always going to be met, right? But the thing is, like, you have to get the kids to rise to that level that you expect, right? And sometimes that's hard, especially, like, you know, in Maspeth was a little bit different because there was never a coach there before, there wasn't a culture set there before. So it was my opportunity to really like build this program literally from nothing, right? So whatever happened in that program was going to be on me, right? There was nobody else that had hands on it. So, but then going to York and taking over a program that now had been coached by somebody for, I'm not even sure how many years, you know, the coach there was before. That was the toughest thing I ever had to deal with, honestly, because it was not a winning mindset. There was no winning mindset. There was no work ethic.
Coach,
So it was
break down what is a winning mindset. You're talking about, you know, the player and the athlete's mindset at this point. I think this is a critical thing. So what's involved in a winning mindset?
Right. So I think a winning mindset is going beyond what we believe hard work is, right? So everybody's like, hard work, work hard, work hard, work hard. Okay, so everybody could work hard, right? The thing is, what unrequired work are you willing to do to get the win or get better? Or, you know, I really think the difference is in the unrequired work. You know, what are you willing to do that's beyond? So I think that's number one, honestly. You know, I can't stress that enough. You know, from my perspective, it's like everybody could get in the gym and take shots, put shots up, right? And like you're putting shots up and you're putting shots up. Okay, so what? What is the next level of that? And I think that's something that year we were really missing. And we had a talented team. Like my first year, I really, you know, with you know, also like how do you practice? You know, how do you practice? What is practice? And are you looking forward to it? Like, are you excited to be here and to build something? You know, and I think like, you know, the team was just used to losing, you know, and what I realized, like I never had experienced this before, is like, you have to teach somebody how to win, you know, and how to not be complacent. You know, so that was like for me some of like the toughest experience that I've had from that standpoint. I mean, my first year I was honestly like questioning, like, man, I don't think I made the right decision. Like, this is the worst thing ever. Like, do I really want to go through with this? You know, and like I really questioned myself and my abilities even, right? Because like I went from, you know, losing, I don't know, maybe like 4 games in 5 years to, you know, winning only 8. Right. And it was just kind of like, whoa, like it just, everything just flipped. So it was just like really time for me to just like realize like what it really takes and how to actually do it when it's not your base, right? When it's not your foundation. Like, how do you get to build something that somebody else already had an impact on? Right. And I was actually very, very lucky because that year we had mostly seniors on the team. So a lot of those girls graduated, you know, or they finished their eligibility. So literally, like, I had to recruit 10 kids. And not because I wanted to, but because we needed it. And at that point, my biggest focus was, I don't even care about skill. I care about having good kids around me. Because honestly, like, it's hard to coach a team that you don't like. And don't get me wrong, I love all those girls individually to this day, you know, because they taught me so much. And our relationships now, I think, are way better than what they were when I was originally coaching them, you know. But I didn't like them as a group. Like, they just weren't my kids, you know, they weren't my team. And I had to like find a way to like really quickly get players that are going to be willing to, do the hard work and the unrequired work, not only on the court, but for the program itself. So that was really my focus. So I really just focused on getting like good kids, like honestly, like good character kids.
Man, and character kids is so critical. You know, you actually take me back, and when you talk about, you know, a first year being rocky, I remember my first year as an assistant coach at Marshall University. Man, the first practice, and I tell the story all the time. But the first practice, so we sat in the office, and all of the coaching staff, if you don't know, we always have pre-practice meetings. When you're a college coach, you sit down and you prep before the practice, right? So everybody had prepped. All the coaches was prepped. We all knew what we were supposed to do at practice. We get to the court, and this coach right here, my first year as an assistant coach, I forgot every drill, every meeting, I swear I didn't even know how to dribble a ball. I was trying to pass the ball. My hands were sweating. I was like, oh my God, maybe this is not for me. Maybe I'm not supposed to be here. So I definitely know how that feels to get into a situation where you're questioning whether you should be there or not. But I quickly turned it around with my supporting cast, with people that I built around me that could support me and push me through and motivate me in those times of need. So one thing that I really value about you is how transparent you are. And since the first day that we ever worked together, you've always said, you know, hey, I can get a little emotional sometimes. Now, in basketball, emotion as a coach could be a motivator a lot of the times, but sometimes it can kind of hold us back. Coach Bitis, we talked about this earlier. Could you kind of go a little bit deeper with, you know, when you're making these emotional-based decisions as a head coach, you know, what's the difference in the way that you were coaching in that first year as opposed to the way that you're coaching in this third year? Because you said you was watching film on yourself. And I want coaches to really understand that. And if you're not writing something down, if you don't have nothing to write with and you're just sitting there just listening, it's going to go over your head. You need to make sure you got something to write with so you can get this knowledge, all of this free information that's being given out, right? So, Coach, you know, let's talk about how you made that shift from your first year into your third year, and what are some of the things that you're able to do now?
Yeah, I think definitely, I think, you know, emotion can be a motivator, right? But I think the biggest thing is you have to know your kids first, right? And I also want to, like, I heard this recently, like, and it's like inspiration versus motivation, right? And what the difference is, right? So I think it's one thing to try to motivate your kids, and what I honestly, through the words that you use, you have to be very, very careful, right? Because what I'm saying may in my head be normal and be positive and be good, right? But how it's perceived, and that's like the part of communication that we oftentimes forget. Like, how is the other person perceiving this? What is the other person's situation right now, right? So, you know, a player may be emotional about a situation that just happened on the court, and then they come off and maybe they're not showing their emotion, but they might be having this negative self-talk to themselves, right? And now you're also jumping on them and you're saying, like, you know, XYZ, and you didn't do this and you got to do that, right? And they're like already feeling it because of their own self-talk that is being perceived completely different than what it was meant for, right? So honestly, I did watch a lot of film this summer, and I didn't watch film on my team. Honestly, I watched film more for my standpoint and how it is that what my body language is speaking, right? And what my like huddles look like, right? I really paid a lot of attention to that, because, you know, I've watched film on my team already. I know what they're good at, and I know what they're bad at, and I know what we have to work on and what we don't have to work on. And I have also coaches to do the same thing for that, right? And I have a couple of my coaches on here, which is awesome. Thank you guys for being here.
Shout out to the staff too.
Yes.
Your college has a excellent staff. They run a great
and actually a bunch of my players are here too, so which is awesome to see.
Nice.
So my point is that, like, yeah, I have all these people to kind of like do that for me as well, right? And we could talk about our team a lot. The thing is that you also have to have people to kind of check you as well, you know? So, and you also have to check you too. And oftentimes we don't pay attention to what our body language is saying. And I think one thing that I've noticed, and I've watched film, because I watched film for my boys this summer as well, like what I was like during that time. And there was a big difference in my confidence from my body language, right? And how I was talking and what my huddles look like, versus to my frustration that was being portrayed in my body language in games during this season.
Give me an example. What was you doing? Throwing clipboards? What was going on?
Even how you walk, like, you know, your walk changes. Like, everything about you just changes, you know. And even like the intensity of what you're talking with, and you know, actually I have to go back to something else, because one of my coworkers this year who talks to me a lot about this stuff, Dahlia Avivi's on here, and she came to one of my games. I believe it was maybe my second season at York, and we were playing like a really, really intense game, and one of our players was just not playing well, you know, and like she was one of our main people that had to be in the game at that time, but she's the person that just can keep going, So it's like when she's out of the game, like the whole flow would change, especially that second season that I was there. Anyway, so she was just like not making good decisions, and I knew she knew that because of her own body language. So she comes off the court and she's like, we're pulling her out and she's coming down, and like I just like literally just grabbed her and I was like basically like telling her, hey, like we need you, like you got to get in this game, like you got to do this, and I'm like talking to her about all these things that she has to do, right? And like Avivi's watching this from across the way, right? And she like after the game, she's like, what did you say to Elma at that time? And she was like, so I told her, she's like, honestly, it didn't look like that's what you were saying. So when she said that to me, I was like, wait, hold up, let me take a step back here, right? Because I was saying what I wanted to say, but was I actually showing that, right? And did Elma feel that? And that's something that like this summer was like really like my focus on during this like whole quarantine. Like I need to know, like if I may be saying the words, but most of our communication happens body language wise. I don't know if you guys know that, but statistically, that's what it shows, right? That we communicate more through our act, like how we look, than really what we're saying. So, that really took me back, and I was just like, wait, so like she's thinking that I'm saying something completely different, right? And what I'm saying is something trying to be positive with this kid, and Elma's just like, so, and it really didn't make a difference in her game. Right. So then here's where I have to take a step back and be like, okay, like this is what I got to do. And this is what I got to figure out. Right. So I think we really do have to pay attention. I mean, that's what we do most of the time. We communicate with our players all the time, and we have to like really be focused on how it is that we're doing that.
Yeah. So if I'm taking notes, I hear you got to be an effective communicator. It's not always about what you want to say. It's about what's received by the receiver. And your body language has a lot to do with that message. So thank you for sharing that, Coach. And shout out to Coach Avivi that's on the line too, because, she really does her thing too. She's a great coach, another phenomenal. Look at her doing jumping jacks back. Oh, getting a workout in back there. What's up, Avivi? And we love you too. All right. So since you made this jump from men's basketball to women's basketball, I want you to kind of talk about, how do you switch up the way you coach? Like, how does that work? We always talk to males about this situation, but it's great to have a female on the line and ask you, how do you deal with shifting from coaching male players into coaching female players?
Right. I get this question all the time. And one thing that I even was asked this question at my interview, right? Like, hey, you've never coached women. Like, what's the difference? And I was like, honestly, a ball player is a ball player. An athlete is an athlete. You know what I mean? Like, I think what is required of us to do is still the same, right? I think that we still have to coach from a human being aspect, right? And focus on their goals are our goals. Right. So I don't think that the relationship aspect and the coaching aspect really changes much. I think for me, the biggest difference that I didn't expect, I should say, was the difference in ability and skill. Right. And I think that's like what really, like I like to play fast. Right. And like that first year we couldn't play fast. Right. And even now, like we're still not playing as fast as I would like. And it's something that we're building up towards, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. And I think honestly, like, I think that women need women coaches, and as much as like, I've been coached by males most of my life. I only had one female coach and that was in college.
Same here.
Yeah. And I was lucky for that. And I didn't always appreciate her when I was in college at the time, but I do appreciate her now, and I think our relationship has really changed and has grown. But I really do think that girls need to see women in leadership roles that they could look up to as role models. It's also very interesting because like, it's okay. Oftentimes you hear male coaches, and I'm not saying like this is a bad thing. You hear female coaches do this too, where they kind of like berate players, right? And it's okay for them to do that. Like from the male aspect, it's almost like it's accepted and it's okay. But the moment that a female coach kind of does that, it's like, it's like, whoa, who is this lady? You know what I mean? Like it kind of is, it's very different. It's a very interesting dynamic. And I think it's because of the fact that we don't really see women in these leadership roles, you know, and women don't have these experiences. So I'm actually very grateful for this opportunity. I think like more than anything, I think that's what I've embraced the most in coaching women. But I think also that there's a huge gap between girls basketball and boys basketball, right? And in the opportunities that girls have versus boys in you know, from grade level, right? From grade school all the way up to high school, the opportunities are completely like all over the place, right? And like girls just don't have as much experience so what I'm trying to say is like if you look at like D3 boys players, right? Like kids are not going to go to these like elite programs, right? Because if you're looking at elite athletes, they are all putting in extra work. They all have like a different support system around them, right? Versus kids that don't have that support system, who may not be going to like these elite levels of play, there's such a gap there, right? And I was actually having this conversation with somebody else in the PSAL recently, where it's just like the PSAL does so much for boys, right? And like they don't have the same opportunities for these girls. And if the girls are not getting, you know, to play as much as the boys are, and they're not given opportunities to explore, right? Because a lot of girls are not just gonna go to the park to play. Like you barely see that. So the thing is, like, how are we going to help?
Was you at the park?
Only time I was at the park was when my brother was playing, because he'll pick me up, and I would crush him then.
You were going with a dude to go play, right? You weren't like there with a bunch of your girls to go play, like what boys do. You know what I mean? And I think that really takes away. And I think it's getting better now. I think more girls are getting out to the parks and stuff like that, and they're seeking opportunities, right? Versus waiting for opportunities to come. But I think that as high school coaches and as middle school coaches and as elementary school coaches, like we really need to give girls more opportunities to perfect and get better, because they're not seeking those opportunities out themselves. So, and that's what I'm talking about, skill level, that is the biggest gaps. Like I was saying, like, you know, like you go to some of the games and you see so many travels and like all these things, and it's like, hey, like what are we actually teaching our kids? You know, where are we teaching? Like, and there's so much focus on like winning rather than actually skill development, I think, and that really hurts kids, you know, and it hurts their opportunities to go and play at the next level, and it slows the progress of the game. And I think women right now are doing a great job of pushing forward, and I think the game has really changed and has grown tremendously, but I think there's still so much more that we could do and provide. So from that aspect, like that's what I truly believe, and I'm more than grateful to be coaching women at this point and at this time of their life. I just think it's a very interesting time for them. It's a very delicate time for them. You know, they're learning so much about themselves and about who they want to be and who they can be. So I'm just glad to be there and be for the ride with them, you know.
Love that. Love that, man.
Man, you might need to we might need to send you a t-shirt. I'm gonna bring you a t-shirt to school tomorrow. And to anybody on the call, if you want to support the Coaching Corner, go get your Coaching Corner t-shirt. You know, we definitely love doing this, but we want to keep doing it and we need a little support. So make sure you support the Coaching Corner. So, you know, Coach, I can't help but to ask you, because I know that you're very, very particular when it comes to skill development with your players. So could you talk about, from a Division III standpoint, how can you incorporate skill development inside of a practice?
All right, so that's a loaded question. But so this is what I think. I think that, you know, my first year, it was only me and one other coach, and it was very hard for us to focus on skill. And as our program has grown, we have been able, like this past season was the first season that we had a full staff. And this gave us an opportunity.
Shout out to the staff. We'll give them a shout out. After you get done, we'll go ahead and we'll introduce the staff. And coaches, start dropping those questions now in the chat. If you have any questions for Coach Bitis, we're going to go to question and answer after this.
So this year we were actually able to do like split groups. which was nice. So we had just our forwards come in and work with Coach Russ, and our guards would come in and they would work with Coach Codio and Coach Deb, who is not on the call. So that like really gave us some time to just really focus on skill development, but also individual development, right? We also did like, sometimes we did smaller groups where you mix certain guards with certain forwards to kind of like work on specific sets or like breakdowns of sets. So, and we would also kind of like pull in kids individually here and there as needed. So, you know, we had one of our players, Cami Melson, was going through like this really tough like shooting slump for a while, and like we knew that we had to get her more confident back in her shot. So Coach Codio and myself, like we took the time to kind of pull her over to the side either before practice or after practice, to kind of work on those. Coach Codio would hold her own individual sessions as needed as well. So also we did, Coach Deb would send video to players, like clips of what they need to watch. I would do that as well. Like, hey, check this out. This is where you need to get better, or this is what we were looking for here. Like if it came to like game IQ, right? Which is also very important. And again, if girls are not getting the opportunities to play, how are they growing their IQ? So that goes back to that as well. Not just skill development, but also understanding the game and flowing through the game, right? So yeah, so those are definitely some things that we did. Our big focus is footwork. A lot of people think that basketball is played up here, but basketball is really played down there.
The ref, I'm looking feet.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's what, you know, refs are constantly looking at feet. Why? Because that's where the game is actually played. Defensively, you know, whatever footwork you're doing matters, right? Offensively, whatever footwork you're doing matters. Like, and all that fancy stuff and even the basic stuff, right? It comes down to your feet, right? Pivots. I mean, Breanna Stewart is one of the best. Like, she looks like she's uncoordinated, but her footwork is just like impeccable, right? Like, you think she's about to travel and she's just like, whoop. You know, she's so good. And if you really watch her, like, you could see like how much time she's taken in working on that. And also, like, there's like a great Kobe video of him talking about like how he just like would sit there and just work on pivots. Like, Kobe Bryant would just work on pivots, right? So if these guys are playing at the highest levels possible, or working on footwork, why are we not working on footwork, right? If you can't get a shot off the right way from your feet up, you're not going to be able to put that ball in consistently, right? So footwork is definitely one of our biggest focuses.
I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that yet. That is very true.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, since you're so huge with player development, it only makes sense that you would be very technical and go all the way down to the footwork, which is incredible.
Yeah. I'm also a PE teacher, so like that's what like exactly. So to us, it comes down to like, you know, movement and analysis of movement, right? And how can we make our movement more efficient? So if you're trying to get through traffic, you know, it's not really your handle, right? How are you moving your body, and what kind of, like, where are you placing your feet to create that space that you need? It's not your ball handling, it's really your feet.
That's true.
Most definitely.
Wow.
Most definitely. Man, there's just been great information being given out on this call. We have one question in the chat. So coming from Coach Kev, he says, I love what you said about communication. Very important. If you have a player that shows poor body language, what steps do you take to correct it?
Right. So, I mean, and we've had to deal with this, right? I mean, I'm sure everybody has had to deal with this. I think we talk about body language. This is something that we talk to our girls about all the time. Like, we talk about what it is that people are reading off of you, right? We talk about the weaknesses also that you're showing to the opponent when you're low, right? And how that becomes like, is like a lion smelling, like a shark smelling blood, right? It's like all of a sudden they're just coming after you. I know that's how I used to play. I still, you know, that's my mindset. Anytime I see a player that's like, you know, obviously defeating, right? Defeating themselves. So for me, I tell my players, hey, that's the kid you go after, right? Get her to foul you. She's upset. She's in her feelings. She's doing this. So on the flip side, when they're feeling that way, I'm like, hey, like, what do we talk about? What do we talk about as a program? Who do we go after? Like now you're becoming a target. So we start talking about it like that. And then obviously sometimes we have to even show them film, like, look at you, look at what you look like here. What are you saying? What you're doing right there talking about without actually talking, right? Like, what are you actually seeing there? So we definitely try to show it to them, and it becomes a constant conversation for us. Like, I am very, very big on body language and attitude, right? So and not just me, Coach Codio's the same way. Like, we like focus on that. Like, we're like hawks on it, you know what I mean? If I don't catch something, I know Coach Codio got it. And she's on it. She's like, "Yo, did you see that on the bench?" I'm like, "No, I did not see it on the bench." She's like, I got it.
So that's a great assistant coach.
That is.
Right. So, you know, she sees what I don't see, you know what I mean? And I think that we balance each other very well. And Coach Russ as well, and Coach Deb, everybody, like, and this is what's so great about our staff this year. And like, I'm so grateful for all of them and for coming on, because it has been, we have been able to elevate ourselves, right? And for me also to get better, but for each one of us to get better, like it's needed, right? And when you have everybody here kind of looking at something different, because their mindset works differently. Like Coach Russ sees everything on the post, right? Like he's like, oh, like this person, that person, he knows everything, you know? I know Coach Codio like catches everything that's happening, especially from a body language perspective. Like, she is on it, right? And then you have Coach Deb, who is quiet, but everything she says is so insightful, and like she always like is on point with everything she's saying. So and she usually she played at CCNY. She actually had just graduated, so this was her first year on staff with us. And she just sees the game from that standpoint, from like that point guard mindset, you know, and she sees the game holistically, which is cool. So it really like, it has really helped us to kind of like break things down and to be able to streamline our program, you know, and to focus on the things that we really need to focus on without one person having to do that.
Man, excellent. And there's nothing like having a solid staff, man. As a head coach, I always tell the coaching staff, other than the head coach, I always tell them to think about it like a body. In the body, you have the head, and that's literally the head coach is the head. But there is no head if you don't have a body. So all of these assistant coaches, all of your team managers, everybody matters. Because if you're going to win at a high level, everybody has to give everything that they have. There's nobody on the staff. Oh, I'm telling you, when I was at the University of Louisville, and we had just took a trip back, and we were talking to the coaching staff and just hanging out, and we were just talking about different things that they do. And they're working just as hard as the managers. The managers are working just as hard as the coaches. Everybody's working together for that overall goal of winning. But we all have to become addicts of the process. Process of becoming better every single day. So we love that. We're going to go to another question. All right, so we got from Coach Jason. Now that you have been coaching college for a couple years, has what you look for in a recruit changed? What are some of the things you may see that will cross them off right away?
Right. That's a great question. And so, yeah, I think for us, what I learned, especially this year, because we had a really good recruiting class come in last year as well. But it goes back to my number one thing, and I learned that this past year is it has to be character, and it has to be where your focus point is at, right? Like, you can't just be basketball oriented. Like, you can't just want to come to play ball, right? Like, you have to do the rest of the stuff that's required, right? And academics are huge. Like, you can't want to play ball just to play ball and not care about anything else. So I think that one of the biggest things is obviously like the character of the kid is really, really important, but also what are their dreams and aspirations, right? So if you tell me, oh, I just want to go play ball and I want to play overseas and I want to do that doesn't fit the D3 mindset, right? And I realized that, you know, this past year, where we did recruit a couple of kids that were great ball players, but they just didn't cut it, you know? And so it goes back to like what I've been talking about with my coaches, especially, is like, we want to get kids that are willing to do what's the unrequired work, right? Like, what are you going to do that's beyond what's expected to get better and to get to the level of greatness that you want to get to, right? So definitely a huge thing. I think one thing that we watch body language a lot in games, a lot. You know, how are you how are you playing? What do you look like when you're winning? What do you look like when you're losing? Right? And what are the differences there? From a skill standpoint, I think that obviously we want players that could play, right? But I think that we're also confident that we could fix certain things with players. Like obviously we need kids to be able to, you know, dribble, pass and shoot, but you know, and we want to keep getting better at that and the type of skill that we're pulling in. But for us, I think like the biggest thing is what's your character like? Are you willing to work hard? Are you willing to do the work that's unrequired? Again, I want to keep saying that because I think that's really, really important.
Major. That is major.
And, you know, if you're not at the level where you want to be, right? Because you could pull in a kid that might sit the bench for you for a year, right? But then all of a sudden they're just picking things up like, you know, and we have a couple players like that too that have, you know, come on and they didn't really get a lot of playing time, but all of a sudden by the end of the season they're really surprising you. You're like, wow, like even though this kid did not play much in games, they have grown so much from this experience, right? We do want kids to come from good programs. I think that's also important. Like we usually look at certain schools because we know that program is well coached, right? So I know if that was Jason Sal that said that, like, you know, I know Jason and I would always recruit from his kids if possible because I know what he does and how he teaches, you know? And I think that's also really, really important. Like, where are your kids coming from? What kind of leadership have they been under? Do they believe in the team or do they believe in themselves, right? And I think that's also very important in the mindset that you need to carry and bring on with you, because if you have to change somebody's complete mindset, I think that becomes extremely hard. And, you know, I think DP, you also mentioned that to me about an experience that you had at some point. I don't remember at what point in your career where you brought in a kid that was going to be exceptional and she came and she wasn't even going anywhere, right? Like she wasn't coming to practices.
She wasn't
right?
going nowhere fast. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
she got to campus on Thursday and we had sent her back home by Sunday.
Right. And you guys could do that, right? At a D1 level, you could get those things done. At the D3 level, that's really hard to do, right? So it's important for us to really, and as much as we want to, like, obviously everybody wants to make the program better fast, right? And like that was like my thing too. And initially I was like, how can I get better fast? But what I realized is like, it's not about that. I think that you just got to stay patient and you just got to recruit the kids that you believe are going to take you one step forward every single year, rather than getting the kids that are going to, you think, right? You believe they're going to make you better fast. And then it's just not working out. Like that's one thing I learned, and I had to learn that fast as well, because again, like if you want to be successful, it's better to take small steps forward than try to like run forward and you stumble, you know?
Small wins.
Yeah.
Go ahead, man.
You're popular up here. We got a lot of questions.
Yeah, you know what?
Well,
let's just, if you have a question, if you're a coach and you're on the call and you have a question, go ahead and take yourself off mute and go ahead and hop up in there, ask coach. Let's go ahead. Let's get personal. Go ahead and talk to coach. Yes. Ask coach a question.
Who's up first?
Don't get shy now.
Tiffany, you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Sure.
Hey, Tiff.
Hey, Coach. How you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Well, I had a couple questions, but one of the questions was, how do you hold kids accountable for the decisions they make on the floor, good and bad, or do you?
Yeah, so we've struggled with that question a lot. You know, I think you do have to set certain non-negotiables, you know. I think I believe it was my second season where we really struggled with like running back on either offense or defense, like sprinting down court. So we actually started to tally that up. Turnover is the same thing. I think a big thing is that that we didn't do enough of this year, that I want to do more of this year, is tally that stuff up in practice and actually, you know, not necessarily in games. And I have to be honest, like these were things that I did when I was at the high school level, where we used to do a lot of But also I had like almost unlimited time in high school. I have to tell you that, because there's really no rules on how many days you could be with your kids, or you could set up a club and the kids could come there and so on and so forth. In the D3 level, there's a lot of rules that stop you from being able to work with your kids. So we really have to be particular about what it is that we're working on, and how it is that what we're spending time on, right? So do I really want to kind of have like these like punishment runs or punishment whatever, and do I really want them to feel like they're being punished also? Like that's something that I've kind of like changed my mindset on, right? And I do believe that they need to be held accountable, but how, I'm not really exactly sure yet, right? And like that's something that I'm still developing now at the college level, at the D3 level, without having that time, right? But when I was in coaching high school, like literally, if we were like, however many turnovers they had, we had to run for them if we were over the number of our goal, you know, and we ran a lot. And we also had the time after that, because I could have a 3-hour practice every single day and nobody would care, right? And I could have my kids in on Sunday and on Saturday and on 7 days a week. It didn't matter, like, you know. So it really matters how much time you have, I think, and like how much you want to spend time on these things. Obviously there does have to be accountability there, right? So, and we struggle a lot with turnovers this year, and we ran on certain days for them, other days we didn't, you know, and it just honestly, it varied. And I don't have really a consistent answer for this right now at this level, you know. But definitely you have to hold them accountable. I think in practice you could do a lot more and like really make them focus on certain things. I've heard that people have done like they stack up a rack of basketballs, and for every turnover they knock a ball down, and if all the balls are down, like they're running for it. So you know, it really varies.
That's a good team activity that you could do in the practice. Coach, say it again, because that might have went straight over somebody's head, and they can use that in practice.
So if you're playing like full court games, right, and you could tally up turnovers in a sense, you have a rack of basketballs stacked up, and for every turnover you just knock a ball down. So now they're seeing it. You're not constantly like yelling at them, turnover, right? So now they're constantly like seeing the ball kind of like dwindle down, and like now there's like no balls left on the rack. That's when they run, and they kind of know that. So I've heard that a couple of times that people are doing, which is, I mean, I haven't tried it, you know what I mean? But I think it might be a good way for them to stay aware.
Nice. Absolutely.
Yeah. And without necessarily having to talk to them about it, right? And like they could kind of just see it happen, and they can make adjustments accordingly. Now they could self-coach themselves, which I think is also important, right? We can't call a timeout every play that goes wrong. So I think that when they start to kind of self-coach themselves, that's also very, very important. And that's something we did a lot this year. Actually, we wanted our girls to kind of learn how to control the game better on their own. So we allowed them we did a lot of special situation or like end game situations, right, where they had to figure out what to do and how to do it. And we challenged them from that standpoint. And sometimes they were very frustrated about it. Sometimes they were very happy about it. So it was constantly like up and down, but definitely a good experience for them to also hold themselves and each other accountable. Like, hey, we said we were going to shoot a 3 and not go in for the lay, like, you know, or whatever it is. So I think they learned a lot from that experience. So that was pretty cool.
Do you think every team should have a meeting with like an official, a referee, before the season starts?
Yeah, so we didn't do it this year. We did it the year before. But we definitely did go over the rule changes.
Absolutely.
And I think that's also really frustrating for me to see, because it's like high school basketball is ref so differently than what college basketball is, you know, and it's like all of a sudden these girls are going to college and they have no clue how to play the game. Mm-hmm. And I think in New York, we're actually lucky because we play by college rules in the high school level. But the thing is, like, this whole handshake thing, right? Like, why are we not calling that at the high school level? Right? You can't touch a player twice. So why are we not calling it? And now they're getting to college and they have their hands all over people. And it's like, foul. This kid is now fouled out in the first, like, you know, first quarter. So it's like, I think that's really frustrating, you know, from when we're talking about growing our game and making our game better. I think that from an official standpoint, like, we have to be consistent as how we teach the game, because I think officials also have a responsibility of teaching the game. is not just coming in to officiate, right? Especially at those younger levels. Like, you could help, okay, like, don't do that next time, do this. Like, you know what I mean? And like, I've seen it happen, and I think those are the best refs I've ever seen, when they're involved in the game and they're telling kids what not to do and what to do. So I think that's also their responsibility too. They're part of the game, and I think that they understand the rules better than anybody. So if that's the case, then I think that we need to be helping players to also understand the rules. My other frustration is that rules keep changing every year. So it's like,
that's true. They say that they're trying to make it better, you know, and make the game better, but sometimes it's just confusing, you know.
Dude, we can't change something that we just put in last year. Like, give us some time. Give us some time.
Yeah.
They got nothing but time on their hands, you know, with COVID and stuff. They're gonna come out with it's gonna be a new sport that's gonna be before you know. Love it. All right, we're gonna go with a couple more questions. So coaches, go ahead, take yourself off mute, and you can ask Coach Bitis any question that you want to ask her. We're open. I know I see some in the chat. I see Coach Mo. Coach Mo had a question. Coach Mo, go ahead and take yourself off mute.
I was trying to be in the cut here.
You're not in the cut, man. You ain't in no cut. Ask your question.
Oh, man. Coach, what's going on?
Very well.
Your non-negotiables to creating your culture. What do your girls know are your non-negotiables in order for you to create the culture that you guys want over at York?
Right. So I think my second season, we did a much better job of focusing on those non-negotiables. And again, like, and this is so important. I have to say this because I think this year I have a couple of my players on here, and they'll say this too, and they've said it to me this year at the end of our season meetings and stuff. It's like, we didn't focus as much on culture this year as we should have, right? And they felt it and they knew it. And I'm so proud of them for actually feeling like confident enough to actually speak up about that and to also want that, right? Like, I mean, for a player to be like, coach, like, you didn't like keep us accountable for that. It's like, what? I got a player telling me that? That's great, right? And it shows us like how like they are actually starting to buy in and believe that this is important, right? So we're very big on being on time. I always tell my players, if you're on time, you're late. Like, you got to get there early. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you have a class, you know, and you're running behind because of the class, like, I understand that. But if you don't have a class and you're just showing up there late, like, that's a problem, right? I don't care. Saturday morning, we have Saturday morning practice. Our girls commute. They commute from all over. I got girls coming from the Bronx. I got girls coming from Brooklyn. I don't care where you're coming from. Figure it out. That's the time that we can all be together. And it's one day out of the week. And I know sometimes it's terrible, and, you know, but I think being on time is a very big thing. I think attitude and how we behave is very, very important. Because we want people to know what we're about from how we act, right? It's how we do things that really, really matter. And that's something we always preach and we always talk about. It's the how, right? And the why we do something. I think, am I answering your question, Coach?
He went back on mute.
He's trying to go back in the cut. Coach Mo's trying to be in the cut.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, because I know how to. No, yeah. I mean, you know, you're saying being on time is a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Attitude's a non-negotiable. The way you carry yourself, I'm sure, because I've talked to you, academics is a non-negotiable. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, just because, you know, I got the high school and I got to create that culture. So I got to take some of these things and make them non-negotiables, because I kind of give girls leeway in high school.
Right.
But
go ahead.
No, but by giving them leeway, sometimes I'm not preparing them to send them to college.
Right. And that has been like our thing this year too. Is like sometimes we cut them slack, and it's like, but are we really setting the standard that we want, right? We're talking about the standard, but are we lowering the standard? We don't want to lower the standard. That's something that is really, really important. Like, we have to constantly push kids to rise. I think, you know, study hall, non-negotiable. Like, you're not going to study hall, you're not going to play. You know what I mean? Like, the other thing that we've been talking to them about a lot also is like, if you're going to make an appointment with somebody, make sure you go to the appointment. And if you can't make that appointment, make sure they know that you can't make that appointment. So, for example, for like our academic advisor, sometimes they make appointments and they're like, they don't show up, you know? And then like, she's telling me, hey, like, this happened. They didn't show up for this. And I'm like, why are we not showing up? Okay, so you knew that you couldn't make it. You know that this woman has to see, 200 athletes. Like, it's just not fair. So, respect is a big thing for us. We talk about respect all the time, how we respect ourselves, how we respect each other, how we respect other people. That's a big one. Like, pleases and thank yous and encouraging each other. Like, one thing that I really want our girls to do is to lift each other. Like, are you lifting somebody up right now? Or are you bringing them down? Body language, we talk about that a lot. Like, what do we look like? Right. And like I said, like, I had to go back and watch film on myself on that and learn from my own mistakes, and I think that's important too. I think your players need to know that you're also developing and that you're also getting better and that you're also working towards yourself getting better, but you're also working for the team to get better. And I think they once they see that, they respect that a lot more, and they're excited about what's happening. They feel like you're part of that, right? And I think that's important for the kids to know. Like, I'm not here for me, I'm here for you. And I think that's the number one thing that kids need to know. Like, it's about your goals, it's about your dreams, it's about your aspirations, right? And I'm here to service you in the best way possible and to hold you accountable when you're not holding yourself accountable. And honestly, at my level, like, that's also a big thing that I really want to teach my kids is, like, how can you hold your own self accountable? I think that's really important, because as you grow as a professional, right, you have to know how to keep yourself in check in a variety of different situations. So that's important for me too.
Yeah. And coach, as you spoke on just holding them accountable and communication, I know for our training, when we before we start our training session, we go around a circle and we ask the kids, what were you thinking about? We want to know, like, we want you to be involved in this training session. It's not about us training you. It's about what you want to get better at. So I feel like just the communication, just to get the kids thinking. Kids don't think as much lately. You know what I mean? So
totally. We actually do that at the end of practice. We do like positivity circles. Usually we'll shout out somebody else about something that they did well today, and they have to turn and look at each other in the eyes and actually communicate, right? But sometimes we'll even talk about, hey, like, what are our core values? And what do those look like? What do those look like on the court? What do they look like in the classroom? What do they look like when you're walking down the street, right? So that's really important for me too, for them to understand, to be able to vocalize these things and to know them and to learn them and to be able to work through them, right? And to allow these things to become who they are. And sometimes, if you're not talking about that stuff, how are they able to internalize all this, right? You could talk about it all you want, but if they're not understanding why this is happening and why we're doing this and what these things even mean, what's the point? Right?
Definitely. And when you talk about building that team culture, we teach in our 4 quarters coaching program, when you're trying to not only build a team culture, but even if you're trying to enhance a team culture, because sometimes you may step into a situation where they have team culture already and you're trying to bring it up to a whole nother level. So we teach how you have to have an environment that breeds growth. It invites the growth into the environment. And we talk about that environment is the SILT foundation. SILT, S-I-L-T. So the S is for your standards. These are what the standards that Coach Bitis has been talking about. She's been breaking them down for you, really giving them to you piece by piece. Then the I is for innovation. So this is your creativity as a coach. Just like Coach Bitis said, you want to be creative. You want to be innovative, because you want the kids to understand, I'm working to get better for our team. Then the L is for like or love. Now, I heard a lot of coaches say, yo, I'm not here for you to like me. I'm not here. But I'm telling you right now, with today's athlete, they need to want to play for you. They got to want to be there. Like this, the transfer portal is incredible right now. It's outrageous because kids are just transferring. So what do we have to do as coaches? We have to adapt. I'm not saying you got to get soft. I'm just saying that you have to be fluid like water and make the adjustments, right? Then we talk about the T. That's the trust. That's the trust. Your team has to trust you. Your staff has to trust you. You got to trust your staff. Just like Coach Bitter said, she gives and delegates to her staff, and she lets them do their thing. She's not over their shoulder asking them, hey, how'd you do that? What time are you going to be here tomorrow? She's letting them operate in their gifts. And that's what we're talking about. We talk about the SILT environment, baby. So let's take another question. We're going to take one more question from the coaches. Let's go with Coach Ashley Henry. She's been asking a few questions on here. Let's go with Coach Henry.
Hey, everybody.
What's up,
Actually, I coach at Kentucky State University.
Hold on. That's my alma mater. So I gotta make sure that, you know, because when K-State come on the call, we gotta just clap it up. We gotta just clap it up. All right, my bad. I don't want to embarrass you, but you know, I breathe that green and gold, baby.
Listen, I gotta rip it. So this is for coach. I am a young coach. I'm going into my third season, and I work closely with the post players. So I just want to know what's some good skill development drills, or we can talk like offline from a one-on-one that I can do with them, and what are some team bonding activities that you're willing to share with me and everybody?
Totally. If you want to talk about post development, we could totally catch up together and kind of like break that down.
One of your assistants drop your email address in the chat for us. One of the assistants can put that in there for us.
All right, I think it's going to be a prolonged conversation.
Yeah.
But for team culture, I think it's really big to get your team together as much as possible. Right before every season kicks off, we have usually, you know, our first game is like late November. So we usually have like a team get together at my house. Like we'll cook dinner. Me and my wife will cook dinner for the team, and we'll just kind of hang out and, you know, get to know each other a little bit more personally. We try to do team outings. Like last year we went to there's this it's called Photoville. Basically it was like it happens here in the city. So we just went out to the city and we kind of like went through these like this exhibit. It was an exhibit, outdoor exhibit. So we just kind of like hung out. Like they had partners. They had to go around with their partner, see things that they're interested in, talk about their interests and stuff like that. So that was a pretty cool night. But more personally, obviously we do those like end of practice circles where they have to communicate with each other. But we also do, you ever heard of Hero Hardship Highlight? If you haven't heard of that, it is a great activity, right? And you might need to do this a little bit maybe later in the season, where each kid has to talk about who their hero is and why, right? They can't just step up there and just say, my mom's my hero, and just step back down, right? Like they have to give their reason why they believe this person is their hero, a hardship that they had to go through in their life, a highlight of their life. And honestly, like it is one of the most, it could get so intense. Like I had kids talk about, you know, their parents being in jail and like, you know, losing family members and so on and so forth. And it just like all of a sudden, like the team just kind of like gets to understand each other and understand why this person's the way they are. And like, you know, I had a kid that couldn't even speak. He was just crying, you know, and it was just like, wow, like he literally did not say a word. He couldn't talk, you know, and I just think it's just such a personal activity. And it really gets to allow the players to kind of like get to know each other a little bit more deeply. There's also this other thing that we do is called the hot seat. So somebody will sit in a chair in front of everybody and anybody can ask whatever question they want. It has to be answered. If it's really like an uncomfortable question, obviously we try to keep it, you know, clean, right? And like not inappropriate. But literally we could ask a question about anything. And we usually do that for like 15 or 20 minutes or so, sometimes even 30 minutes, depending on how like the flow is happening.
So with hot seat, do you let each player be able to sit in the middle and get a certain amount of questions, or they in the middle for a certain amount of time?
We did it for time, but you can also do it for questions. We also did book readings together. We did a book reading together this year.
Cool. Club, so that's cool.
Yeah. So we did it was actually like a team-based book. It was a John Gordon book. If you don't know who John Gordon is, you should definitely know who John Gordon is. He's a great writer, and a lot of the stuff is based on teams, which is pretty cool. And then what we did at the end of this year, actually during our playoff run, every day after practice, we did like some type of problem solving that they had to figure out how to solve some type of, activity that it was, right? And honestly, it was really frustrating for them, right? It really exposes like your problems, right? What communication problems exist on your team. You get to see that right there. You get to see what weaknesses exist within, you get to see who gives up first, right? Which is really, really interesting, because sometimes you're like, nah, this person's not gonna give up, and they give up, and like who you believe a leader is all of a sudden shuts down, and it's really interesting when you give these different problems for them to solve and how they have to work through that. It was actually a lot of fun for us. They hated it, but it was also pretty cool because in one of the situations, one of the problem solving nights, we had a recruit in the building who actually joined us, and she's actually on the call right now, Alicia, and she was like, I got the answer, and she just like stepped up and like showed them how to do it, which was awesome for me to see, like a recruit just getting involved like that in practice. And I'm really grateful that she's joining our program. But yeah, so I think that there's a lot that you could do, and we could talk about that even more. Anybody who's interested in things like that, culture building and team building activities, I'm all for it. I would like to know what you guys do too. So I'm all about learning. So anytime you guys want to talk, just let me.
Definitely going to email you. I'm about to get it out of the chat now because I think your coach, the assistant, dropped it in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's in there.
Cool.
Love it.
Thank you. That was some good stuff though.
Yeah.
Hi, see.
You're welcome.
Nice. All right. So that wraps up our segment for today. Man, we're super thankful to have you on, Coach. Thank you for joining us. Is there any last words that you want to leave the coaches with before we hop off the call?
Yeah, I think, as we're all consistently growing, right? And I think one of the biggest things that we have to do is to be flexible, like Coach ZP said before. Allow yourself to grow and allow yourself to be comfortable to make changes, even in the middle of the season if you need to. Listen to your players and listen to your staff. I think that's really important for us to be able to grow that way. I also, like I said, the words that you choose to define your program, right? You not only do you have to define them, but you have to, choose them carefully and also live them, right? And once you live them is when those words are going to become who you are and what you want your program to represent.
Deep.
Love that.
Deep. And we're going to end with a couple things, just some housekeeping things. We have a couples call tomorrow. We're doing a couples call. Me and Babe are going to be on, giving you some couples motivation, some different things that we're able to do in our relationship. We're also in business together, so we do life and business together. So we're going to share some different things on that. But thanks, Coach, for coming on. We appreciate you coming on. And we're going to leave everybody with just a little bit of motivation to get you through your week and get you to the next week. So, Coach was talking a lot about being focused and being laser focused. So as you go throughout your week, make sure that you're laser focused. And if you do make a mistake, try to fail forward. I'm going to say that again. Fail forward. So if you make that mistake, make an aggressive mistake, go back, self-assess, make the adjustments, be fluid like water, and keep it moving. It's not that deep. Make the mistake, fix it, go back, make sure you get your mind right, get back to it, just like we tell our kids, and play the game. Play the game to win, because everybody is a winner deep down inside. You just got to find it. You got to find that winner inside of you, because everybody has it. And that's what we're going to leave you with. Make sure you get your Coaching Corner t-shirts.
Yes.
Come on now.
On DevrInnPaul.com. Please grab your shirt.
Yeah. Coach Thomas, I see you on the chat talking about they look good. Order you one. I got one just in your size,
we
too.
We sure do.
Man.
Well, thank you, Coach. You already know you're like family to us. Thank you for being on and sharing that great information. And to everybody that was on, we thank you, and you have a great night.
You too.
Great night.
Take care.
All right.
See ya.